You were told to be quiet. You were told to shrink. You were told that love meant pain. Here you are. Here you rise. Welcome to Powerful Woman Rising from Narcissistic Abuse. The show where we break the chains of narcissistic abuse, reclaim our power, and step into the unstoppable force we were always meant to be. I'm Azadeh, best-selling author, narcissistic abuse educator, and coach to high achievers. Together, we'll uncover the truth, rewrite our stories, and ignite the power within. It's time to rise, it's time to heal, and it's time to take your life back. Welcome to another episode of Powerful Woman Rising from Narcissistic Abuse. I am so excited. I think I might fall off my chair. I have my very first attorney here. I've had doctors if you've been watching my episodes, but my very first attorney that I am so fond of and admire from a far distance. I have Courtney here, powerful, beautiful, bold. We're going to find out how this powerhouse here left and rose into her life, into her power, into her joy. I just saw some pictures of her in Mexico. We're going to find out. So join me in welcoming Courtney Bannan. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate this opportunity, and hopefully my story will resonate with some people and they'll learn from what is happening to them, because honestly, it is the best and worst thing that's happened to me.
Oh, I seriously just got goosebumps. The best and the worst. That right there, you guys who's listening, tells me that she's not stuck. It tells me that she has learned and grew into her superpower after. But let's start with Courtney. Courtney, let's go to back in the day when you realized something's not right. Something won't change. This is not normal relationship. This is not someone, this is not normal. This is not okay. And I'm breaking down. Let's go back to your very first moment of clarity. Share that with me.
My very first moment of clarity had to do with taxes. We were filing taxes. I had been married for, close to 2 decades at this point. And the breakdown of myself was very, very gradual. And I had never even heard of narcissism before. I'd never dealt with a narcissist prior to this. So I was not even aware that this was like a thing, so to speak. So we were filing taxes, and I noticed that something was awry with the numbers. And that's when it became gaslighting. No, you're wrong. And all of these things trying to like alter my reality or what my understanding of reality was. And honestly, it wasn't for years later till I realized that I was right. But I knew I was right at the time. I just didn't have any evidence of it. And then I started really questioning other things when I started looking up what gaslighting is and understanding that these were things that other people were going through, and that I had really been a victim of it for a very, very long time. And I started looking back in my life and realizing how I was isolated from certain members of my family, how I was criticized. And most of all, the biggest thing was when I pointed out something, how my reaction became the number one thing that we were discussing. Instead of the thing that was done to me, my reaction to it or my questioning of something became the principal focus of the argument. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I asked you that because, the numbers don't match up. So it turns out he had been hiding money and getting bonuses that he wasn't claiming taxes on. And then that tax liability became my tax liability. And it wasn't until years after that when I filed something called like an innocent spouse waiver with the IRS that I was right, because the IRS sided with me and took all that tax debt and put it back on him. But that's when I found out, you know what, I wasn't crazy, because that was a word that came up often also. You're crazy. You're making stuff up. You're paranoid. Those
Oh,
were all the things that I had been told. And I didn't even realize until after I'd been divorced for quite some time that I was a victim of narcissistic abuse. And I went to therapy. And, the one thing that takes away the power of a narcissist is you don't give it any energy. No response is the best response. It is the one that hurts them the most. So that's when I stopped, reacting and saying things. And sometimes I just wouldn't even respond. But the biggest part of this story is when you get out of a narcissistic relationship, you are very broken in some really important ways. And you don't know that. You don't know what you don't know about yourself. So then you start choosing other partners and looking into other relationships, whether romantic or not. And those relationships, you're drawn to those because you're still that broken person. You're still seeking validation. And when you get over all of that, that's not when you really truly become yourself, is when you realize you don't need validation. You don't need an answer. You don't need an apology. You don't need to know what happened. It's better to just walk away and just deprive the fire of oxygen. But it's really difficult to know that until you've healed. And the healing is probably the most difficult and hard part. But when it's done, you have a superpower. Like, I got chills and tears in my eyes. There's a superpower that comes with this, a confidence about yourself when you recognize narcissistic traits and people who may not be full blown narcissists. And then you start to really understand how to build relationships, whether it's in business, friendship, romance. You know how to build relationships properly, and you spot those traits a mile away, and then you can just walk away, just cut it off and walk away. And you'll be the strongest person you will ever be once you've gone through the process of validating yourself, loving yourself, and trusting yourself. You have to trust yourself. And when you walk away from those things, there's a whole other world out there.
oh my God, you said so much good. I'm gonna pick it apart. You
Pick
guys,
it apart.
it is so many people are stuck in victimhood and they don't do the healing. They don't give themselves the time to grieve what they thought was. And what happens is they just postponed life. They
Yep.
postpone their superpowers. They postpone. And here you are telling me, I could hear it. See, that's the other thing, is that when we heal, we can hear it and feel it in the other person. They don't have to just tell us. We hear it. The words that you chose, the way the energy that came with the words that you chose, I can feel it and see it and hear it, that you've done the work. And this is so miraculous, and it just pumps me up, because so many people don't. They go to another one with another name. They stay in
Yep.
victimhood, or they completely shut themselves off from the world. And that is no way to live. No way to live. No way
It's
to live.
not. And women, we tend to be a little more on the empathetic side. And if you had any type of, trauma as a child where you're always seeking love or validation, the
Yeah.
narcissist is like the perfect person for you, and you're their perfect victim because they love bomb you, they're charming, they
Yes.
tell you all the things you want to hear. And then after some time, you wake up and you realize that you're isolated. Mine was so bad at one point in my marriage that I developed a very severe social anxiety. I didn't want to go to any of his office parties. If I had to go to any of his work events, I would be completely paranoid because I didn't know what he was telling people, or, who he was cheating on me with at the office. And anytime I had tried to, ask him about stuff, I was called paranoid. Turns out I wasn't, because I got all the proof I needed later. I'm a lawyer, so of course I needed answers, and I found them all eventually. um, but it was horrible. And then it all became about me not wanting to go to the office party, and me not wanting to do this. But every time I did go, I found something out that was traumatizing. I would hear things like, oh, we told him he didn't have to go on that trip for 40 days. We told him to break it up into 3 different trips. But at home, he was telling me they're demanding that I do the whole trip in the whole 40 days. Sorry to leave you with a newborn baby while you're in law school, but I got to go. So those little things used to just horrify me. And I didn't want to put myself in that position anymore. And then after I got divorced, I started finding out a whole bunch of other things. And they were all the things I'd been paranoid about through the whole marriage.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. It was really bad. And he actually ended up marrying the girl he dated before me, whose whole family like had always been he was really good friends with her brother-in-law. There were two sisters and he was friends with the brother-in-law, dated the younger sister. They were at my wedding. And I throughout the years she was always, brought up. She was on my face. They're in my wedding photos, by the way. So
oh,
they have this presence in my life, and every time it turned into conversations about the ex-girlfriend, the sister would bring her up. And then I'm like, I just don't want to hang out with these people anymore. I mean, it's really uncomfortable for me. And they weren't respectful at all. And then after we got divorced, I found out he had been with her a few times during my marriage. And then I also found out that they had been married for a year and a half and he didn't tell anyone, including his children. So those were the types of things that he had been doing. And every time I questioned it, it was, oh, you're paranoid. Look at you. You're crazy. You're jealous. And no, actually, I'm not any of those things. What I am is I'm right and you don't like it. Didn't know that at the time, but I do now. And it was very, very healing. And my relationship after, like, I really only had one relationship since I got divorced, on and off again for 8 years. And he was not a narcissist, but he had narcissistic traits that he inherited from his mother. And then that's when I realized, uh-oh, I have some healing I need to do. And that's when I really started doing like the dark shadow work and the spiritual work and the healing and the therapy. And now I'm invincible. I'm completely invincible.
you sure are. You sure are. Oh my God. I am loving this podcast. Courtney, instead, with the second one that had traits that were triggering the old wounds that you had healed from, you went straight to I need to go back to healing instead of going to another one or trying to fix him or trying to make it work. You didn't do those old patterns. You realized, uh-oh, I got to look at me. Uh-oh, uh-oh, I got to go get work done. I got to go healing. And then you did the dark you went through the dark night of the soul.
I did. I did. And, I did do some therapy and healing after the divorce when I realized, what a narcissist was. It wasn't enough because you don't realize how deep it goes until you try to get into the next relationship. Luckily, I had done enough work where I recognized triggers and I recognized these traits. And the difference with him was he would admit it. He wasn't a narcissist at all, but he had those traits that were learned behavior from his
Yeah.
mother,
Yeah.
who is a narcissist. So he also did a lot of deep work and he was able to work through a lot of it. And he was a very beautiful person, like extremely beautiful, soulful
Mm,
person.
mm.
So he was willing to say, you know what? Okay, I see what I just did here. I'm sorry. So he would apologize. And I think he worked through a lot of stuff as a result of my journey and then teaching him about it. He realized that he was picking up these patterns as well. So he also healed, which is good. So, it was a really beautiful experience. And now when I recognize these traits in people, I really adjust where they are in my life. And, I don't ever really cut anybody off, but I have like a mental shelf, and some people are on the top shelf, some people are on the bottom shelf, and I switch them around as needed. But I see it in business. This is a really good trait to have, especially with attorneys who I believe mostly, operate in the narcissistic trait category.
Oh,
Um, it's really important because the gaslighting in a civil case or a criminal case, it runs rampant in this industry. So, I mean, this has given me a great tool in business as well.
oh my God. Love, love all of it so much. Tell me and our viewers the guy with the 8 years first.
Mhm.
Are you guys together or did you guys move apart?
We moved apart only because there was a big age difference.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I didn't want to, I don't want to go down that road and be that person.
Yeah.
But we separated on very good terms, and he's literally the most beautiful human being in the world. And I loved how he evolved from my problems. Like my
Yeah.
problems,
Yeah.
got triggered by his things, and then he did a lot of work too. He works on himself as much as I do, and literally probably the closest thing to a perfect human that exists in this world.
That's beautiful. So you were
Yeah.
able to, you were an attraction. Your healing and growth was an attraction to him to look at himself, which is
Yes.
the most beautiful thing in the world. And then now talking about your business. So there's a lot of narcs as attorneys, right? So you deal with a lot of power struggle conversation, power struggle dynamics. And I want to say I love that you said you have to adjust. I always say there's people that are here, there's people that are here, and then there's people that are here.
Yes.
Know that damn three trishal dynamic. Know it, know it,
Yes.
know it, know it, know it, know it, know it. And I'm not perfect at it. Some because of our hyper empathy, right? It's easy to go, oh, maybe they can come a little closer, but ooh, no, went too close, got to push back. Tell me about your work. Like, tell me about, is this with other attorneys that you are dealing with, right?
Yes.
Give us an example of like a conversation that, let's just say someone's bulldozing or pushing through your boundaries. They are just trying, and you have set them, you have communicated them, you have enforced them, but they keep coming at you, and it's in a work environment. How do you handle those situations?
Sometimes I handle them really well, and then sometimes they just can't be handled well, and you have to kind of handle it however you can to save the case. I was doing a deposition, and this attorney, no matter what question was asked, obviously gave the same narrative to be repeated over and over again, and it was a gaslighting alternate reality of the facts of something that had happened. And at one point, I'm like, okay, we're stopping the deposition because this is ridiculous. You're suborning perjury at this point because you're having them have this like this set of facts that didn't happen. And he wouldn't stop talking. He just kept going and with that same false narrative. And I just started screaming objection, objection over and over again. So the court reporter couldn't write it down.
Oh,
It
oh,
was the
I got that. I
only
got
way to stop the deposition. And then I stopped it because it was just too hostile. So, we had to get like the judge on the phone. It was a whole thing, but it worked. And I didn't care because I had to save the deposition, which I did. But, in the end, I had to deal with facts. So whatever they were saying, I had to do some like dark background checks, like dark web stuff, and find out what the facts really were and then present those. So with narcissists, you must deal in facts. You have to deal in facts if you have to deal with them at all. Best thing to walk away. In a court case, you can't. So in a court case, I just had to find the evidence myself and just put it all on paper for the judge and let them see that the way they were trying to spin the facts was in fact just perjurious. It was a
yeah.
blatant lie. And that's the only thing that you can do dealing with a narcissist in business is just deal in the facts. And of course, then it became about my reaction in the deposition. He was like typical narcissist pattern. So once I did that, it became about me disrupting the deposition, which was my deposition that I was paying for. So then I had to explain why and do all of that. But that became the focus, not the fact that he was having the witness, suborn perjury. And that's just what they do. So it's really frustrating, especially, when you're like, well, I have a license I have to worry about, and then I'm dealing with somebody doing this. But this is very common in the law. That's why they say, lawyers are liars. Well, a lot of them are. And this is what they do. They gaslight the facts. That's what they do for a living. I'm not that kind of lawyer. But and not all lawyers are, but most, especially in litigation. And just presenting this alternate reality to the facts all the time. It's what they do. That's how they spin defenses and try to confuse juries. And I get that. But, there's a line there. Some of them are better at it than others. And those are your true narcissists, not just lawyers using narcissist tactics. And it's really hard to spot the difference sometimes. But when they double down, you're like, okay, you're a true narcissist. I get it. They just can't let it go.
Oh my God. I mean, how many, such an important piece is that they can gaslight the jurors. They can't to win, but you, since you've seen it, lived it, healed it, can see that dynamic. Bam, bam, bam. What would you say the percentage roughly of attorneys are narcissists?
I would say like 60 to 70%. Bad. It's high. It's high.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, of
That's
the ones that I've dealt with in litigation,
yeah.
I'm talking about like litigation attorneys. And I think that they're naturally drawn to the law because they are charming. They love bomb their clients. That's how they get all the cases. They're sparkly and interesting. They're intelligent. And then, if it's easy for you to spin an alternate reality to confuse a jury so somebody who's injured doesn't get what they deserve, that makes you not a good person to me. Like there's a lot of things about the law that I don't love, and that's one of them. So being able to spin a defense that just confuses the jury without any factual basis, that's just wrong. And being able to do that, you have to be a certain type of person. I could never do that. I deal in, justice, truth, and facts. Like I believe that attorneys should come together and just talk about what really happened and then make good on it. But instead they want people to get away with nothing. No financial obligation to something, no fines on something, no attorney's fees paid back on something, and that's just wrong. So just the ability to do that for a living, you have to have a certain personality. And I would say that personality would be narcissistic or narcissistic traits.
Oh my God. And so how does it feel for you to see? Here's what I'm thinking. Courtroom, Courtney's on, and here's a narcissist attorney, and she can literally see how the jury is fawning to the attorney, and you over here have the facts loud, clear, crisp, but they are all moving towards the delusion and the theory of this narcissist. What at that moment, what happens internally for you to fight for the truth, not just to be right, but to fight for the truth? How do you manage that internal volcano happening as you see it because you've lived it?
Oddly enough, it doesn't really affect me so much physically. I stay pretty calm, and I understand that the calmness is something I've taught myself to feel in those moments from relationships and life, and now I've been able to do that in business because it's the most important factor in the delivery of what the what the truth is. And if I can't deliver that truth quietly and calmly, then it's going to be more, and that comes from from reactive abuse, from being
Yes.
treated poorly because I've reacted to something. So I've learned how to like go real deep into a very, very quiet. I'm very spiritual, so I use my breath work and my yoga mantras and
Yes.
I just go really deep internally, and then I just say it like it is, like, you're being gaslit. This is, an alternate reality that they're trying to create with a set of facts. And the set of facts are bump, bump, bump. And you are smart enough to understand those facts yourself. You don't have to have someone tell you what their idea or theory is, because at the end of the day, what they want is for that person to not pay for what they did to that person. So, and usually something like that works. I've never had to do that with a jury. I'm just with a judge in a regular hearing. But usually that really, really works because people don't really want to be told what to think. So I tell them, don't let someone tell you what to think. Come up with your own assumption of what happened based on the facts. And these are the facts. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the only thing you can do. And if that doesn't work, there's nothing more that you can do.
But then at the same time, if it doesn't work, you're still rewarded and felt content because you communicated clearly, you communicated calmly, and you communicated in truth and fact. And if they don't, then the result, I mean, you can't control at this point. But the reward is still there that you did what was right, and justice, and the true justice is what an attorney's supposed to be, right? Is to
Right.
seek justice.
Yeah, and it feels good. Your client feels validated because their truth was spoken. You've also laid it out really good for an appeal. And on top of that,
Oh,
just the karma of that other person, that's going to be on them. And at 9 times out of the 10, I really, really believe that most of the time, I win those things because I'm so honest, and I think I'm very credible when I'm telling people, hey, this is what happened because I have a piece of paper that shows that it happened at this time. It didn't happen. It wasn't dark out. It wasn't whatever.
yeah,
And
yeah, right.
so I like to deal in facts, and I'm pretty straightforward about it. And you know, there's only so much you can do, and then the important part is knowing when to surrender, and just it's going to be what it's going to be, and it's out of your control, and you can't internalize it. You can't blame yourself because it is what it is at the end of the day. But it's really hard for your client who wanted their day in court, and then they're being like positioned as this person that they aren't, and that's really hard when they see the portrayal of themselves as something different than they are. Like I had a case where there was a somewhat older man, not older but like older than the girl, and she was in her early 20s, and he said something to her, and he was just joking around with her, and it wasn't anything untoward, it wasn't sexual, it wasn't flirty, it was something stupid, and she turned it into something like a Me Too movement kind of thing, and called him a dirty old man and all these things. And he was destroyed inside. He felt so sad that anybody would think that of him. And I said, she doesn't think that of you. And I don't think anyone else did either. I think she's just trying to win by saying whatever it takes to win. And that is a form of gaslighting. I don't know if she was a narcissist or not, but that's what her attorney told her to say. And that's what she said, and turned it into something completely different. And that happens so much in my profession. And it's, having gone through my experience, it breaks my heart to see people who are going through that in an already really uncomfortable situation because you've got some kind of legal problem,
Mhm.
and it's heartbreaking, and it shouldn't be allowed. But I'm so happy that I went through the experience I did, because now I recognize those things. And old me probably would have gotten very reactive and fought back and put a lot of energy into it, but now I just turn off the flame and deprive it of oxygen, and there's not more you can do with a narcissist but walk away, keep your mouth shut, don't react, and just let it go.
Yeah, but if you haven't done the healing, you're not going to be able to be connected to that. You will get sick with just one comment, with just one phrase, one sentence, one what gaslight. If you don't do the work, you will lose that's how you lose your life. Is
Yeah.
you spin out in pain, internal pain, either go to addictions or we just lose our life if we don't do the healing. But let's talk about, so these narcissistic attorneys are weaponizing and grooming their clients like it literally is the master and the puppet.
Yes, and I love that you say weaponizing, because that's exactly what they're doing. What a great way to put it. They are weaponizing their client. And, when you have like a plaintiff who comes to an attorney and they want to sue somebody, and they have kind of a good case, but not really, they will literally fabricate facts into the facts that exist. They'll add color to the facts. They're not blatantly lying, but they're embellishing and making
Yes.
things a little, yeah, and that's gaslighting. And then they use their client, and they tell their client, cry while you're saying this, do this while you're saying
Oh,
that. And it's a total manipulation of what really happened. and it's for financial gain. So it's just disgusting to me. I don't like it. And I turn away a lot of clients because they come to me with these cases and I can spot their motive from a mile away, thanks to all the healing and stuff that I've done.
Right.
Because potentially most clients are going to tell you what they want you to hear, so you will do what they want you to do. That's very typical. That's why my intake process is really, really, it's very, very in depth, because I don't want anyone to come to me with a case, tell me what happened, and then later on I find out, oh, they were embellishing, they're just mad at this guy, they just want to, a lot of people use the legal system just to screw with people or screw with other people. They use it to be vindictive, and that is really important. This all this stuff that I've learned about narcissists help me figure all that out too. Like, I can tell when somebody isn't being authentic, when someone isn't telling me the whole story. Like, you have a hole in your story, I can see it a mile away. So I dig deep into that, and then I'll just say, I don't think I can take this case, thank you, and I'll just send them on their way. And now I only work with people I know. Like, if I don't know you, I'm not taking your case. That's just how it works now. Or, I'll take referrals from close friends,
Yeah.
but I just don't want to be manipulated like that ever again. I've had, early in my career, I had cases where they told me things and, oh, I have the documents for that. And then they show me the documents only to find out like they made the documents themselves. So I have like a really hefty
Oh,
verification process that I started after that. Yeah. When you first start out, you don't see all of this coming. When I was like, 1 or 2 years out of law school,
oh,
and I was in a narcissistic marriage at the time.
right, 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 right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see it, but now, so you're telling me that these 60-70% narcissistic attorneys are after either finances or power or both, which is both, and
Yeah.
you're over here serving for the truth and justice.
Yes. Yeah.
And and they are also grooming, conditioning their client to show up in a way to support their ultimate gain, their hidden agenda, which is power and money.
Yep. Money. It's all about the
Money.
money.
It's all
Yeah.
about the money.
And then
Not
the power comes with the money. More money they have, the more power they have, especially if they're in a firm and they're a partner and they have to bring in a certain amount or bill a certain amount. They'll just continue to bill clients, bill without really doing too much. They do a lot of really bad things. Civil litigation has become extremely corrupt, and I'm just like really trying hard, one case at a time to show people. And that's why I'm known as the mindful attorney, because I speak a lot about mindfulness in the practice of law, because the law is supposed to protect.
yeah.
Supposed to protect. It's not a tool to get money, do billing. And the legal profession has become one giant billing event for firms to just, you know, that case could be easily settled through a business decision, but they continue to drag it out because they just want the billing event. That's how they make their money. And
Oh my
it's sad.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Courtney, this reminds me of this is the same as it is with rehabs and doctors and making money off of poor people's
Hmm.
addictions. You know, because I'm sober. I'm a sober alcoholic, been sober 23 years. And watching this as I got recovery from getting sober, but watching how they've turned addiction into a money making, you're telling me the same thing is they were taking people's pain and dragging it out so they can bill more and make more, and then ultimately to get the money and the power. Forget justice, forget what's right. We're looking at a cultural narcissism.
Yeah.
We're looking at something much bigger than relationships that we deal with. Although that's the betrayal, like you talked about with the girl in your wedding, and I can't even imagine that right there is trauma to the heart at its core. But you're also talking not just is love being weaponized, so is justice, so is the truth, so is money, so is everything. It's all one big narcissistic collapse.
It is. It largely is. That's why it's really important to recognize the signs of what's happening in whether it's in business or in your personal life, so you can kind of skirt around it, avoid it, and help your clients or your customers. It's really important to show them, hey, you know what? They're saying this. What do you have that I can show that that's just not true? Like, do you have phone records? Do you have this? And then just quietly kind of fight behind the back of it. And you know what? It prevails because at the end, the truth does prevail. It's just you have to be able to keep cool headed and present it and not get involved in the typical things that we do dealing with narcissists, explaining ourselves, waiting for validation for them to say, you know what, you're right. They're never going to say it.
Yeah.
Even if they believe it and know it, they are not going to say it. And learning that right there just adds 25 years to your life because you will
Yeah.
stop explaining yourself and waiting for an answer that you are never going to get.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Take the truth, hold it in silence, and nurture it in your power, because you over
Yes.
explaining, trying to prove, and that's like what we do in relationships. Can't you see what you're doing to me? Can't you see how you're hurting me? Can't you see? Can't you see? And then we say it, say it, say it. Then we lose our power, give it away. And then now they call us crazy. But when we see it, we need to recognize it and hold it and then respond to it. Courtney, how do you ever get clients that are in a relationship, in a divorce situation, that are going through a narcissistic divorce?
No, but I have friends like that. I don't do anything. I don't do what I call people law anymore. I won't do anything that involves emotions, relationships, or anything important to the
Oh,
heart.
okay.
Yeah, I did divorce for quite some time, and I also did some immigration, but it's really I don't have the patience or the fortitude to go through somebody's emotional trauma like that anymore. I just don't want to. It really takes a toll on me. I'm very empathetic.
Yeah,
And then I
yeah,
find myself like thinking about them at 3 o'clock in the morning,
yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
my God, they're hurting.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. That's why I wrote books. That's why
Yeah.
I'm helping people write books, because
Yes.
as a hyper empathic person, I naturally I care too much. And
Yes.
that's being a target for a narc, by the way, whoever's listening right now.
Yeah, it is.
Your over empathy is a target if you don't have boundaries around it. You got to have boundaries around your empathy, or it will
Yes.
get weaponized. It's
And you
okay
know
to
what? I didn't even know about boundaries before. Like
yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
whole new my daughter taught that to me. My daughter
Really?
is the most emotionally intelligent human being I've ever met in my life. She's so amazing. She changed my whole life and probably had more to do with me understanding I had some healing to do than anyone. And she's the one who taught me about boundaries. And
Wow.
I love it.
Wow.
Big on
You-
boundaries.
How old is your daughter?
24.
And I'm obsessed with boundaries. I'm obsessed. Like, we should probably do another one on emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, sexual boundaries.
Yes, we
Seriously.
should.
We should.
I'm obsessed with boundaries
Too,
too.
I'm obsessed. How do
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost, it's an obsession, but it's almost so fun to be able to know how I can show up different now, versus
yeah,
before I just showed up for everybody, everything all the time. Everybody, everything
yes.
all the time. And how do we, so your daughter is 24 years old,
Mhm.
learned boundaries, shared it with mama.
Yep,
Wow,
yep.
what a beautiful mom and daughter story.
She's literally a goddess walking this earth. I don't know, and she honestly, she did it all herself. It's not because I raised her. It's not because I'm a good mom. It's because she just inherently was born with this glowing soul. And as she was going through life, especially dealing with, her parents getting divorced, she said something to me once, and I was like, "No, I mean, we're family, we're obligated." She's like, "No, we're not." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, duh, we are." And she explained about boundaries to me, and she said, Is doing this going to hurt you?" I said, "Yeah." "Is doing this going to ruin your day?" "Yeah." "Then you don't have to do it, Mom. You don't have to do it. You have to keep yourself healthy and happy so you could be there for your kids and for, for the good stuff. You don't have to do things you don't want to do out of obligation. Obligation is a weapon." And she taught me so much over the years about how to communicate with her. Like, I'm not the same person I was, 10 years ago because of her and things that she has said to me when I realized that I was stuck in a pattern, not just from dealing with, being the victim of a narcissist all those years and always explaining myself and looking for validation, but also not realizing that I could be a different way completely. I didn't have to just heal from that. I could just change everything about myself if I wanted to. And I wanted to. So I did. And that was all her. It was all her. She's my strength.
Oh my God, Courtney,
Yeah.
I know you're making me cry. This is what hyper empathy looks like. We pick up on each other's tears.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful, unexpected, which I love, love, love. Um, wow. Wow.
And actually, boundaries are the best way to just completely shut out narcissists. They hate boundaries. There are no boundaries with them. They own you. They're possessive. They own everything about you. So boundaries, you have them. You won't even, like, I'm a shield. I have a force field that a narcissist won't even be attracted to me anymore because they know I see you.
I see you. I see you. And I certainly feel you. And
Mhm.
I'm feeling my way out for sure. We're not an
Mhm.
energetic match. It's like, so, God, such good stuff. I love boundaries. I had a former um, mentor, somebody helping me. I always was at that time trying to find the right person who understands this. And you know what, you guys, by the way, if you are new and trying to get help and you're dealing with a narcissist, don't go get help from someone that's not versed in these dynamics, because they will only try to help you manage the reactive abuse versus see what's causing it.
Yes.
So
That's
please
such a good
get the
point.
get the right help, get the right someone that's versed in these dynamics. But anyway, what my point was, my mentor at that time was teaching me how to be a lighthouse. She goes, Azadeh, you're a lighthouse. You're just a light. Be the light, but don't draw them all in. Don't draw them all in, right? Like, here's the rocks, is your boundaries, and you're the lighthouse. Be that elegant, tall light, but that's it. You don't have to go throw rafters or be the rafter. Throw the rafters. Don't be the rafter. And I
Love
thought
that.
it made so much sense. So I started buying lighthouses to remind me of how to be a lighthouse.
I
Um,
love that.
do you love that? I love that. I'm gonna
That.
send you a lighthouse to remind
Oh, I love
ourselves.
it.
To remind ourselves. Courtney, I definitely want you back on our show. We
Love
can
it. I'll be back.
talk about boundaries. What would you say, lastly, to the woman listening right now that may be in law school, may be in school for anything, that to want to become that powerhouse that inside of her is just dying to be birthed. Like, she's pregnant with this powerhouse business, writing books, whatever. Because you wrote, by the way, you guys, Courtney, Ready, Set, Launch is her book. Follow Courtney. Show our book. Yes, yes. Show the book. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. I love that cover. And I have to
You.
read that book. And maybe we'll do the podcast on the book. But what would you say that woman that wants to write the book, that woman that wants to build the business, but she keeps being called paranoid, stupid, wrong, liar, annoying? What would you say to her? At the same time, she's dealing with this relationship. but she's also wants to write books like us, wants to become a powerhouse, wants to build her business, wants a connection with her daughter. What would you say to her right now?
The most important thing you can do for yourself is become completely self-aware. Make a list of all the traits that you find amazing in a human being, and then check off the ones you have and be honest with yourself. And at the end of the day, have the confidence to know that you know who you are. And if you aren't lying and you aren't screaming and you aren't cheating and you're being told you're doing all these things you're not doing, then you know the truth. You are your own anchor. You can love yourself enough for everybody in this world. You don't need one other person to love you if you love yourself. And just always remember that you can do anything you want. And that was my catchphrase for 2020, from 2023 till now, is I can do whatever the F I want, only I say the whole thing out loud.
Yes.
And that's what I
Yes.
tell people. I can do whatever the I
Fuck
want,
I want. That's
and I
right.
do. As long as you never hurt anybody while you're doing it. You just do what's right for you, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. And that's it. Just know yourself, love yourself, be yourself.
Ooh, woo. Mic drop. Love that. Love that. It is. That is ultimately that, right, Courtney? That is our superpower, is we get ourselves back. Not the person we were in that relationship. We get the person that was meant to be, the person that our creator made us to be. Y'all, do the hard work. Go. I mean, doing the dark night of soul, don't run from it. I cried my guts out for 2 years, and I'm grateful for every teardrop because it rebuilt me. And so grow, do the healing, because you will attract another one and another one, whether it's a girlfriend, a business partner, another guy, doesn't matter. Do the work now. Do the work now before
Yep.
you're 60 or 70 or 80 and you're just miserable in addictions and have nothing because you didn't do it now. You are a powerhouse. You are empathic. You are transparent. You are beautiful. And we all just raise you up and give you strength in speaking the truth in those courtrooms, because it's it's a fight. It's a
It
fight.
is.
And I lift you up. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
with us
you.
today.
Thank you for letting me share my story.
Yes.
I love to help people, so I appreciate this opportunity so very much. And you're such a beautiful person doing such good work. It was an honor to do this with you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. We can't wait to have you back for boundaries, baby. Woo!